we have Peninsula Energy. Peninsula's got a US-based production platform, as Guy mentioned, which is becoming increasingly relevant, as we see more focus on domestic supply and security of supply in key markets. George, I'm going to hand over to you.
Great, thanks a lot, Jane, and hopefully you can see the presentation on the screen.
Yep, you're all good.
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks, Guy. That was an amazing overview of the uranium sector and the opportunity ahead of us. And, you've really hit a lot of things well, and hopefully people can see the opportunity is enormous. In terms of companies that have been getting on with it, Peninsula's been at this for quite some time. It's been focused on the Lance project for a couple of decades, and has had a few stop-starts over the last 10 years. And a couple of years ago, I think the company, whilst investors wouldn't agree, probably had the best moment when the toll treating agreement was terminated, and the company was left basically half pregnant, and they decided that they needed to build the facility to produce their own dried yellowcake on site, and that's a picture of the facility in front. And that was a real big turnaround because we can really now control our own destiny. We had the pleasure of producing our first drum of dried yellowcake in September last year, so we are right in the midst of this uranium renaissance that is happening at the moment. And Guy mentioned and introduced the three presenters today, a range of producer and explorers and developers, etc. But we've got a few hats on, I think, and sometimes when you get into the production stage, people forget about the upside in the project. And at the moment, we host the largest uranium resource in Wyoming, 58 million pounds. We have an additional 7 million pounds at the Dagger project, which is about 12 kilometres north of the Lance project, totaling about 65 million. But we also have a exploration target calculated under JORC resource of 163 million pounds. So the Lance project has got enormous potential. We currently have a facility that can produce 2 million pounds per annum of dried yellowcake. We have a license to be able to upgrade that facility to 3 million pounds, and for a very small investment, we can take that facility from 2 to 3 by fundamentally adding a dryer, and that'll take us to look at what our portfolio is. We've got a very long life at the Lance project, so huge potential. It's fully licensed, and I'll take you through some of those aspects in a moment. We went through a really big reset last year. I joined the company nearly 15 months ago now. The plant was originally targeted to start production in March. I'll use the word delay, but really when you have a look at from concrete pour to production was only 14 months, and looking forward to guys seeing the project in a couple of months' time and seeing that that was a tremendous effort to actually build the facility in such a short period of time. Our production guidance is 400,000 to 500,000 pounds in calendar year 26 and 500,000 to 600,000 pounds in calendar year 27. We're really making sure that we develop a really solid base for production going forward as we move towards filling the central processing plant and then filling the license. We're in an outstanding opportunity at the moment. We have uncontracted near-term production, and currently we only have one contract on foot, which I'll go through in a minute. Market cap, as Guy mentioned, I mean, we've had a significant retrace of price, but it's great to listen to Guy and appreciate that what we're doing is the right thing, and the upside is definitely there. We just have to navigate through these interesting times in the marketplace. In the capital raise we did last year, we definitely saw a significant increase in institutional support and people on our register at the moment. I'll just touch on a couple of people. We do have quite considerable experience at site, and I'll highlight two people. Ralph Canode has been in the industry for 50 years. He's worked in ISR for his whole career in North America, Kazakhstan, and Australia. And Brian Pohl, our VP of Operations and Development, this is the fourth project that he has constructed. We're located in the Powder River Basin in the state of Wyoming. We have a large land package up the top there in the northeastern corner, and you can see that if you move that package around, you'll see that that would cover multiple projects in other parts of the basin. So we have a significant land holding in the state of Wyoming. We're now focused on production coming from the Ross area, and whilst it's a small diagram, that small area there is where production has come from and will come from for the next 2 years. We will then move into the Kendrick area, which is the next area that is fully licensed and permitted for the next 6 to 8 years. So we have permitting in place for the next part of our journey. And then the larger area being Barber is where there's huge exploration upside and will feed the central processing plant for many decades to come. We also have to the north there the Dagger project, which is higher grade. So the central processing plant, it's a pretty standard flow sheet in relation to the plant. We bring the uranium into the plant, we capture it through IX, we elute, we precipitate, we then filter press and then dry the yellowcake to less than 1% moisture content. So reasonably straightforward. The plant will be back up and running. We announced to the market about 7 weeks ago that we had failure in the agitators. It was incorrectly installed as part of the construction. Those agitators look like being delivered this weekend, so we're within the time frame that we told the market when they would be on site and back up and running. So going through commissioning challenges and getting through most of those matters. We're working through Mine Unit 4. Mine Unit 3 was a disappointment. We have dropped our expectation on Mine Unit 3 in relation to the flow rates. Mine Unit 4 has much better flow rates. That's due to the hydrology. We're bringing on Header House 14 as we speak. 16 will be coming in shortly. 17's ready to go. And so we will have all of those in online ahead of schedule, well by the third quarter of this year. As part of the review last year, we also changed the header house pattern designs. We've reduced the distance between our injection and production wells from 80 feet to 60 feet. We've also reduced the number of production wells within a header house, so taking that from 45 to 30. When you combine those and plus better flow rates, Mine Unit 3 was expecting to have acidification take 9 months. The new header houses will take somewhere between 2 to 3 months to acidify. And we've already seen that performance in both Header House 14 and 16. As part of that, we're reviewing our future mine units, and we're likely to start pushing that out from 60 feet to 70 feet, maybe to 75 feet. We're not going back to the old ways. Part of the reason we can successfully support a 70, 75 feet spacing is because of the flow rates in future mining units. So last year was all about commissioning, still going through commissioning at the moment, the ramp up, 400,000 to 500,000 pounds for calendar year 2026 as mentioned, and then heading to that full scale production. And, you know, the investment and the money that needs to be invested at Peninsula outside of exploration is really about bringing on more mining units at the same time so that we can ramp up production flow into the central processing plant, which has been built and paid for. This was probably a significant improvement in value. The company had some long-term legacy contracts that were in place that we just simply couldn't fulfill. Our production profile was not able to be matched, and we would have to continue to be in the market to deliver into those contracts, which were lower than the current spot price. So now what we're left with is a £600,000 contract, which is between 2028 and 2033. That's for £100,000 per annum. The rest of our production is up for available to talk to new contracts. the future growth, and I'll keep harping on that. We've got enormous potential. There's been limited exploration that has been done on the Lance project over the last 5 to 10 years. Some of the exploration that has been done in the areas of inferred have shown a significant increase in the amount of pounds that have been calculated previously. So we've got a lot of upside with our resource base. We've shown this before. I will highlight the Dagger project. We're just working with the landowners at the moment. We should have that locked away, and that is 7 million pounds at over 1,000 parts per million. A lot of exploration's been done on that, with scoping studies underway, and that should form part of future supply into the central project. Good solid run up to there. You've got power infrastructure that is through the Dagger project. I will highlight that we actually use a very small amount of diesel on site. You can see the numbers in our sustainability report that we published recently. So the impact of the change in diesel price at the moment is very minimal to us. We're off the power grid. The state of Wyoming produces power from coal, so it's a very low cost of energy to our project. As mentioned before, May last year, we had the approvals for the Kendrick production area, so that's now fully permitted. In the US, they shifted the responsibility of approvals from a federal level to state, and so now we deal with the state of Wyoming. The state of Wyoming has the lowest population in the US, so a project like ours is more relevant in a jurisdiction like Wyoming than other states in the United States. Guy touched on this. I mean, it's the US currently has an enormous fleet of nuclear reactors. It's got SMRs employed in the in defence. There's some very strict rules about where the Defence Department can actually source their uranium from, and it fundamentally is it has to be produced in the United States. From a utility perspective and a civil perspective, the United States consumes 50 million pounds of uranium per annum. Last year, the United States produced 2 million pounds. So there's a significant gap between domestic requirements and domestic production. And then you add that layer on top of that, which is the requirements of defence, and they're now in very deep discussions about how they're going to start restockpiling. There is only 5 producers in the United States at the moment that make up those 2 million pounds. The capacity is about 10 million pounds of built central processing plants. So there's a real strain and a real need for future further US production. So we couldn't be better placed. That's a highlight there. As Guy mentioned, there's going to be a lot more pressure on pricing coming forward when you've had a look at the 3 transactions done in January, February, where you've seen Bannerman and the Chinese, you've seen India with Kazatomprom and Cameco. That accounts for about 70 million pounds over the next 10 to 12 years. It's a significant amount of pounds that have now been contracted. There's a huge amount of pressure on demand, and people are now starting to look at life of mine. As Guy mentioned, you talk about next gen and the significant amount of production, but there's going to be other production that will slowly come to their end of life. So, we need more projects up and running. We don't see a lot of competition in this space because there's a deficit in production. So look, in summary, ASX-listed, we're established operator in the United States, significant resource with huge upside. The central processing plant is in place. We are producing yellowcake, and we're hoping to have our first shipment in coming months. We've put a lot of effort into our reset plan. We're actually the only uranium ISR project in the United States. All the others are alkaline leach. ISR accounts for over 55% of uranium produced globally. And we've got an experienced leadership team, both at management and board level, to take this project going forward. So I'll leave it on that note for questions.
Oh, George, I think that's phenomenal. And yeah, obviously from the presentation today, I'll get you to stop sharing your screen. We will jump into some questions now. But So you are an established operator, and I think for me, it's more the exploration upside is where, what I wanted to hear about, and I'm sure a lot of investors are wanting to hear about as well. So thank you for that. Again, please use the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen if you do have questions for George. Let me just jump into the first one here. So, and a deeper dive on the offtake agreements. Again, well done. But the question here is, are there other discussions underway, and how long would this type of agreement take to execute?
Um, so, so look, obviously we've been in the market with contracts for a number of years, if you like. So maintaining relationships with utilities and the like. We're also talking to the US government on a number of angles for offtakes. So look, how long do they take? Firstly, we're not going to be in a position to really go into offtake discussions until the third quarter. We're changing the way in which we're running Peninsula, and we want to make sure that we get to a sufficient run rate and confidence in our deliverability of pounds before we start going out and putting in place further take or pays. I mean, we're still suffering from last year's cancellation of contracts, but we'll start to put in a thought process and a strategy in the third quarter this year to start looking at that more closely.
Wonderful. Lots of questions coming through, so bear with me. And again, you touched on this in your presentation, and I think it was slide 18, actually, to be honest. But obviously, strategic advantage of you being a US producer. What do you think the Trump administration might do?
Um, Look, there was an interesting research report come out recently that said, the East is acting and the West is planning. We've seen it in the rare earth space where it's taken a long time for some of the Western governments and that to really deliver solutions, if you like, and you've started to see some things play out in the US landscape with rare earths, with MP materials, for example, government equity, government loans, government floor pricing. They're working through it at the moment. I mean, and Guy might have touched on this. They put a lot of effort into enrichment and downstream, if you like. And I think there's some eyes now coming to having a look at the uranium side of it. That's going to be the real critical crisis point going forward, if you like. So, we've spent a bit of time in DC. We've got lobbyists. We're working in that space to engage. And I think, it's a government agency. They've got other challenges on at the moment. Department of Energy are working on a lot of fronts, if you like. So I think it's just a matter of watch this space. They're looking to do things in the uranium space with the producers.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I think you're already in a quite strategic state at the moment with Wyoming, and your US asset base is sort of like located there. So, how are you seeing that play out in terms of demand and contracting at the current state of play in government?
Yeah, look, I mean, the US government's very interested. The US utilities, I think, see themselves having a problem around 2030 and beyond, if you like. So we haven't seen a lot of RFPs coming out in recent times. One thing I will say is there is a lot of overseas countries that are contacting us because they like the low political risk associated with mining in the US. So don't underestimate some of the other countries around the world who are actually engaging with us about our offtake. And I say to the US government, I'm not here to solve world peace, but it's crazy to think that other countries will start buying US produced product when they need it for their own domestic needs.
Interesting. Okay. Um, I know you're running late actually to be picked up, but a couple of more questions if you don't mind. Um, okay, how should investors be thinking about Peninsula's position in this current uranium market?
Look, I mean, we'll be able to leverage off the spot market because we don't have contracts in place. So should we see an uptick in the uranium price, we'll be able to get the benefit of that immediately. We're in production. Um, you know, it's we're a player. We're actually producing. Um, we've got an interesting situation at the moment. A lot of people look at our cost curve, where we sit on it. Sometimes projects can look a lot better on spreadsheets than they do when they're actually in production and you're actually experiencing all the true costs. And there's a real big inflation impact on mining operations all over the world and businesses in general, and whether or not feasibility studies keep up to that, whereas we're living that. I mean, we're paying wages, we're paying for sulfuric acid, we're paying for all the inputs on a day-to-day basis. So, our cost structure is real, and we know where it stands.
Perfect. Look, and I think let's talk news flow. What key things should investors be looking out for over the next sort of maybe 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so look, it's I think getting back into production. So that announcement will come out in the short few weeks. The Dagger project, and then really delivering into the promises we make. So it's all about getting to that 400 to 500,000 production guidance by the end of the year. So that's what a lot of people are looking at from Peninsula, is to show that they deliver in their promises. We've got an integrity issue that we've suffered from over recent periods, if you like. So it's important that people have confidence in this in the story of Peninsula.
Well, absolutely, George. Thank you so much. I mean, new board, you're established operator, and you've got that exploration upside. So, yeah, exciting times ahead.
Oh, absolutely, and guys got me more excited. So enjoy the rest of the conference, and look forward to speaking to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And if we haven't any questions for George today, please feel free to reach out via info@janemorganmanagement.com.au.